Podcasts of Brannon House.
Massive human trafficking. It's a record 288 people arrested.
They're not reporting the real numbers.
The numbers are segmented and they are fictitious.
I started my career in 1997 in the United States Border Patrol. It was one of the most violent times in recent Border Patrol history. I made my bones and my reputation on that border. I believe what is happening on the border today is intentional.
We have people in the United States of America that breed children in order to sell them.
Our own government is facilitating the absolute destruction of the American immigration system, and I can prove it point by point. I'm unafraid to speak the truth. This is just data-driven and experience-driven.
Why didn't Jake Tapper write this a year ago? Because he knows what would have happened. Somebody in the White House would have called up and said, Tapper, no one from CNN is going to get a seat at a press conference. There's not going to be any CNN interviews. So he backed down. And now, in a very cowardly fashion, now he comes out and he is blaming the White House cover-up. But what he doesn't tell us is the White House cover-up would have been impossible had not CNN, MSNBC, PBS, NBC, ABC, CBS all conspired with the White House staff to downplay, not just downplay Biden's cognitive decline, but attack people. Bottom line, they had more interest in protecting this left-wing administration who was using this waxen effigy of Joe Biden. And for someone's purposes, we don't know who was running the country, who was giving him the auto pin executive orders. We don't have no idea who those people are. We have a suspicion it was the Obama crowd. But nevertheless, they didn't care about that. They did not care about that. All they knew is that this was a left-wing agenda and it had to be preserved by any means necessary. And that included lying, covering up, and worst of all, demonizing and attacking people who sought to tell the truth about Joe Biden. And now he wants to say what? I have a little humility. I may or not. I sort of kind of was part of the cover-up, but now the real Jake Tapper is in this book who's now telling truth to power. No, you're telling truth to impotence. Joe Biden has got cancer. He's written off. He's in decline. The family is disgraced. It's easy now to write about that. It was hard and would require intellectual courage, moral fortitude to say this when he was the most powerful man in the world. And so, Jake Tapper, you failed that test because this is one of the greatest acts of duplicity, moral duplicity I've seen in my entire life. And it joins a long list of collusion, capers, conspiracy, bogus, frauds, ruses. Jake Tapper, you should go back and see what was your position on Russian collusion. What was your position on Hunter laptop disinformation? What was your position on the Steele dossier? What was your position on the 51 intelligence authorities? And I think in every one of those cases, you failed the test of truth. And you really did this time in the greatest cover-up in the history, as I said, of the American presidency. And it's not over yet, because we're going to learn more and more tragically about Joe Biden's medical condition and to see if not just whether the cognitive disabilities of Biden were cover-up, but whether his prostate metastasized cancer contributed to that, and that source was also covered up.
Welcome to Truth with JJ. That was Victor Davis Hanson. I think one of the very few men in American culture that is wise, that has wisdom. And you go through the Bible, that's one of the things that everyone wants. Everyone ask God for. What is the thing you want? I want wisdom, because it's so rare. There's billionaires, right? There's people that have incredible athletic talent, that are physically strong, incredibly beautiful, influence, power, but it's very, very few people have wisdom, and wisdom takes time. It's cultivated over decades, and that is one of the men that is wise. Another man that I say is wise is retired Colonel McGregor, Douglas McGregor, excuse me. And Victor Davis Hanson says this about Jake Tapper, but he's saying it about all of the media, and he's also maybe in a way saying it about all men. And that's why I have this in my title of this episode. It's time for the American man to stand up. And it can't just be the Victor Davis Hansons. It can't just be people, Brandon House. It can't be Tucker Carlson. It can't just be me. It has to be all of us. We all have to stand up and speak the truth. And look, Victor Davis Hanson went through Jake Tapper, called it the biggest duplicity he has ever seen in his entire life. That's a big statement coming from Victor Davis Hanson, who is a bold, knowledgeable historian. But why I want to focus on what Victor Davis Hanson said about Jake Tapper is because it can be applied to the American man. And what Victor Davis Hanson said about Jake Tapper is he said, you're impotent. You had a test. The test was, sir, are you going to be man enough to stand in the face of the most powerful man in the world, in the face of the most powerful group of people in the world, and speak the truth? And you failed because you would not speak truth. You waited to the most powerful man in the world was completely destroyed. His family was disgraced. The people that are the power brokers behind him that were pulling the strings or actually just making the decisions outright are running for cover and shelter out of fear of being arrested or discovered. And then you come out with a book. And Victor Davis Hanson is absolutely correct. The place, the time for you to come out with that book would have been after Joe Biden was elected, after about a year. We all knew he was mentally incapacitated prior to that, but at least I'll give you a year, 18 months to absolutely see it. You are inside the belly of the beast, Jake Tapper. You have all the inside sources. You're talking to a guy that doesn't have the inside sources to the White House and can see clearly from day one he did not have his faculties. But again, Victor Davis Hanson talks about the need for men to speak up in the face of adversity, not when it's easy. When it's easy, anybody can do it. When it's difficult, it's only few of the men in America will stand up and speak the truth. I want some more truth to come out. I want you to watch this exchange from the Louisiana Senator Kennedy speaking to a man that's going to tell you from the Department of Energy gave $93 billion in loans out in 76 days, the date between Donald Trump winning the election and the day Donald Trump became president. Those 76 days, the Department of Education put out more loans than they did in the last 15 years combined in 76 days. This is called theft. Watch this.
The 76-day period you're talking about, that's the period between the time that President Trump was elected and President Biden left office. Is that right?
That is correct.
During that short period of time, 76 days, how much taxpayer money went out the door of the Department of Energy?
From the Loan Program Office in loans and commitments, $93 billion. Well over twice as much as in the previous 15 years. There is lots of funds that have gone out the door and commitments that were made from businesses that provided no business plan, no numbers about their own financial solvency or how this project
So you're telling me that the Department of Energy, in the 76-day period before their boss was going to leave office, gave or loaned money to entities that had no business plan?
Correct.
No financials?
Correct. I've come in with great concern about how this institution, this great American institution, has been run and how American taxpayer money has been handled.
But you're going back through and checking each one of these loans and these grants to make sure there was no stealing, aren't you?
We're looking at that, and yeah, my blood pressure is rising right now just thinking about what we have seen and what did happen at the department.
And you're going to tell some of these boondoggles no, aren't you?
That's correct.
It's rare that I'm speechless. But I want to be sure I understood. The people running the Department of Energy for President Biden's administration shoveled $93 billion, not million, $93 billion out the door in 76 days, and it just happened to be the time between when President Trump was elected and President Biden, their boss, was leaving. Is that right?
It is correct and distasteful. Confidence undermining.
My God.
My God, in truth. Look at what we have become as a nation. We are a den of thieves. The idea that the American Republic is strong is a lie. We are a house of cards ready to fall. The only thing that's keeping this house of cards upright is our ability to print money at will. And that is a short-term fix that will collapse us in the long term. We would be bankrupt. We would be Zimbabwe right now. We would be Mozambique. We would be Germany in the Weimar. We would be rolling around our streets with wheelbarrows full of dollars to get a loaf of bread. Do you know how much collusion has to take place to push out $93 billion? Try to imagine you have your household. The average income in America is a little below $50,000. So you're running your house for a year for $50,000. You're pinching your pennies. You know where your money's going, your rent, your electricity, food, trying to save, if you can even save a nickel. You know where all that money, $50,000. Let's double it. Let's say that you're doing well, $100,000, which is just average. Let's say you're doing really well, $150,000. And you're barely getting by at $150,000. And you know how to make those dollars stretch. Now imagine $150,000, which is like taking a penny and pulling a piece of the penny apart. And then you're not even getting a true proportion to the $93 billion. $93 billion was handed out with no strings attached, with no financials, no nothing in 76 days. That means your government colluded and stole your money in the tune of $93 billion and gave it away. Do you know how much collusion? Do you know how many people had to be involved to make that happen? That's not just 1, 2, 3, 4. No, that is a conglomerate of people sitting there saying, how do we do this? Who's going to get what? Okay, start shoveling the money out. America is on the brink, I believe. With my gut, I believe it's on the brink. Before we go to our Tuesday guest, who is the best, is Ann Vandersteel. We're going to dive right into it. Please go to our sponsors. They allow us to be on air. It allows us to speak the truth. You're not going to hear a lot of the things that we talk about on this show, definitely on MSNBC, and all the other crazy ones, even Fox News. Fox News is still trying to tell you that there's 10 million people in America that are illegal aliens. They're trying to tell you 7 million crossed in the last 4 years under Biden. And there was just 3 million in America prior to that. This is how you do it. And you go and you get products that are amazing. And this one is shopbellagrace.com, shopbellagrace.com/truth. Caleb, if you have one of the commercials, that would be great. shopbellagrace.com/truth.
As a practitioner with a very large practice, at the very end of the day, I tended to be a little bit worn out. I wasn't covering from taking care of patients. In January, before we pre-launched the company, I was one of the very first people to get the 15-day samples. And right away, I was connected to the Bella Grace Collagen Elixir. Just an overall feeling of wellness, but also a little more energy. I recovered in my workouts, sleeping just more soundly, and then waking up the next day ready to take it on. For me, it was the power of three: the cat's claw, the astaxanthin, and of course, the best, most studied Verisol collagen on the market today.
ShopBellaGrace.com/truth. ShopBellaGrace.com/truth. Great products. I take them. ShopBellaGrace.com/truth. All right, Ann Vanderstill, how are you doing today?
I'm good. It's kind of like Monday today, isn't it? It was a nice 3-day weekend with, of course, as usual, the stuff flying around next. But I did take a little pause to enjoy the fam.
Oh, that's great. Good to hear. Now, can you give us a quick update on your time in Massachusetts? What we left you last week, you were headed to begin the lawsuits. How is it going?
Sure. So got into Boston last week. We were there to meet with the Rivera family, specifically the husband, Isaiel Rivera, who has been held criminally and civilly in charges, and he was arrested, held for $2.5 million. He and his wife, Ruth Encarnacion, were both held at gunpoint and arrested in Texas when they left Massachusetts under the persecution of Department of Children and Families. And following this case, we have uncovered just one after another in terms of violations of their constitutional rights, each having separate attorneys, each being told by DCF they're not allowed to communicate with each other. He was held a lot longer in prison and for extra money, even though the charges are the same, which again, that goes to the inequality of this whole thing. And of course, this is what we're up against, right? Or agencies that aren't following the law and are violating yours, right, in your face. And the judges are standing behind this. So going up there, we shot a documentary. We interviewed Izzy, the husband. We interviewed several constitutional attorneys and others. And we're putting this documentary that's due out in about less than 30 days, probably about 3 weeks from now. And that's what we're going to drop the federal lawsuit, because we want this to come out boom, boom, as a real strong case to show the evidence so the public understands and we garner the court of public opinion. Because again, as American-made action exists, we have two arms. We have the legal arm under our United Law Coalition, where we have about 1,000 attorneys who are signing on to lawsuits to support one another, so that you don't have one going up against the system with their bar license being threatened, as we've seen happen over and over again. And that's, of course, if you want to assume that the bar is really an organization that's worth joining, but that's the system. So they don't want to lose their right to move in that system. And then, of course, we have Department of Government Accountability, DOJA, which is a people-led organization. It's a private entity unto himself outside the statutory realm of people that are filing notices and affidavits. Notices if you are just wanting to notice the criminals that we are leveling lawsuits against using the United Law Coalition, and affidavits if, in fact, you're an aggrieved party, somebody who's been a victim of the system. You can testify to that in an affidavit and have it notarized, and that becomes a truth of fact statement that's useful in court. So we are attacking the system that's attacking us from the people side and the legal side, and we believe we're going to come out on top in this and liberate millions of families by just isolating one agency in one state and, crumbling it, taking it offline, because this agency has 10,000 children right now in the system in the state of Massachusetts at any given time. And parents are stripped of their rights and are literally jumping through hoops and a carrot, a stick, a goal that keeps moving ever forward into the distance, and they never get their children back. And meanwhile, these children are being trafficked. It's just a horrific situation. And we feel that if we attack the head of the snake, we're going to, prevail for the families.
Thank God you're doing it, because when you begin to connect all the dots, HHS has oversight over all the CPS. CPS is now being claimed or allegated that CPSs across our nation are participating in the child trafficking and the abuse of families. It's unbelievable. And you talk about they were arrested in Texas. At the same time they were arrested in Texas, Governor Abbott has massive FEMA camp-style camps with children in there, foreign national children. It's like we live in an alternative universe, Ann. I swear to you, it does.
It really is. And when you look at HHS, right, that has the largest budget of any agency. It's just below $3 trillion this year. $3 trillion, of which under Health and Human Services falls the Social Security Administration, which is using Title IV-B, Title IV-D, Title IV-E funding. And the Title IV-E funding is sort of the Mac Daddy of all funding that distributes down to all 50 states, which each has their own acronym for essentially child protective services. The state of Massachusetts uses DCF, Department of Children and Families. North Carolina is DSS, and every state, again, has a little bit. Some of them are just CPS. So again, that funding is, again, coming out of your tax dollars, cycling through an agency that you nor I actually elected, the bureaucrat that's running it. Now we have Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. running it. I'm hopeful that we're going to see a lot of the waste, fraud, and abuse gutted from that agency, and that he's going to listen to the experts. I speak to experts all the time, many of which have been victims of the system, but have gotten an education in the legal side of it all and the common law side to understand just how their rights are being violated and also who the perpetrators are. And here's a little tidbit for your audience that I think they'll find interesting, because I'm sure there are families in your audience, JJ, that have been victims of CPS. We are now taking cases. In other words, we're not litigating the individual cases, but we're talking to people out across the country. Hey, if you've been a victim of CPS, please go to AmericanMadeAction.org and upload your cases into our database, because what we are doing is using our paralegals to comb through all these cases. And now we're getting heat maps around the country, and we're seeing judges in certain states that have an unusual amount of cases where they are just textbook violating your constitutional and civil liberty rights, your rights. So we are able to now go, wow, the next state we got to hit is such and such state. And we're seeing a judge and a ring of people involved, whether it's caseworkers, law enforcement, pediatricians, whatever. As in the Rivera case, a pediatrician said, oh, mom and dad don't want to vaccinate their 9-month-old with a vitamin K shot. I mean, come on. So this is what started this trail of tears for this family, and absolutely has blown this family up. So this is what we're doing, and this is how we are fighting back on behalf of the American people.
And for our audience to, if anyone's saying, well, that's hyperbole, that HHS was trafficking. No. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. came out last week under oath and said that HHS and the American federal government is the largest child sex trafficking organization in the history of civilization. Those are his words, not ours. So this is happening, Ann. And to kind of dovetail in what you're talking about, due process, that's the new catchphrase that the left is saying when it comes to illegal aliens. And I went through your Twitter feed, as I always do, and there were a couple things that popped up, but this is one that I'm furious about, because the average American has no idea. And on your X account, you plainly stated, listen, illegal aliens don't get constitutional rights. They don't get due process under the Constitution. Now, if they commit a crime and they're arrested, they will get that due process. But under illegal immigrants, they don't get due process. What is your take on this, Ann? And I'm going to follow up and tell you what mine is from a Border Patrol agent when it comes to due process rights of illegal aliens.
Well, first of all, let's start with they violated the law. They came across the border unconstitutionally. Article 4, Section 4 is very clear. Our government is supposed to defend our border. And under the Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3, the states are to do the same if there's a foreign invasion. So if you aren't going through Customs and Border Protection checkpoints and following the proper procedures to actually immigrate into our country, you're a criminal. I don't care if you're a mom with a child or you're a cartel member, you are classified a criminal. So we have got due process, that shouldn't even be considered due process. These people had due process if they came in illegally, but they didn't. So they come in illegally. They are not here as a citizen. The Constitution applies to the Americans that live here and lawfully reside in this country. These people do not. I don't care what their circumstance is. They do not. So when you come in that aspect, why would we even say that they are guaranteed due process? They should be following the procedure to be deported. And I believe that is what we are seeing under this president. They are working like heck. Unfortunately, what has happened with the previous regime in power, which if we prove through AutoPen and a whole host of other things that they're looking at right now, and I want to shout out Ed Martin right now over at the Department of Justice, who is looking into these things. Thank you, Ed Martin. That is going to be I think a poison pill for the bad guys is Ed Martin. But if we look into, we find out everything Biden did was wholly unconstitutional, including his election, then I really don't think the parameters they put up, where they were ignoring Title 42 and they were just literally streamlining these illegals and using your former agency's Customs and Border Protection's CPB1 app, where these illegals could just hop on their cell phone and put a destination they want to go to and fly into that, bypassing everything. That is not how this Constitution worked. My father was an immigrant, JJ. He sailed into Ellis Island and went through the whole process. And he came here because why? He wanted to be an American to fight in World War II. And he wanted to serve our country and protect and defend what we have here, what our founding fathers determined to be the second covenant nation, right under God. They wrote all of our love letters, our founding fathers, our documents, Declaration and Constitution. These people coming in aren't about any of it. Look, they're setting up Sharia cities, right? Epic City in Texas. We've got the Colony Ridge in Houston, Texas, a bunch of illegals, cartels, criminals, MS-13, et cetera. We can't continue to allow this because we are dissolving the fabric of our country. A melting pot we are, but not by illegals and criminals. That is not who we are. Those people do not get due process because they're not here lawfully.
Thank you, Ann. This is the thing that's been driving me absolutely insane is listening to these talking heads try to explain due process rights for illegal aliens. Number one, they don't understand the immigration process at all. The due process is built in there. So let me give you an example. There's a thing called expedited removal. So if I arrest somebody within 14 days and within 100 miles of a border, which is basically everywhere in America because international airports are borders, okay? Mm-hmm. If I do that, I'm the judge, jury, and executioner, me, the Border Patrol agent. I determine that you just crossed within 14 days within 100 miles of, you're deportable. I write you up as an expedited removal, and I deport you back to wherever you come from. That's the due process. Or I see you cross, I then deport you back, I either remove you through a deportation process, or if you're a Mexican national, I'll allow you to voluntarily return on your own, meaning I walk you down to the port of entry and say, go. The idea that illegal aliens that jumped the fence and ran and got away have the same rights as a U.S. citizen is mind-boggling. That our intellectuals think that the whole world has constitutional rights under the Declaration of Independence in our Constitution. It's asinine, Ann. We're run by the dumbest people in our society run our country. I believe that in the depths of my soul. There are times, Ann, I look at them and I say, how the hell do they have millions of dollars and I don't? How are they so successful? And then I have to remind myself, they're not successful because they're intelligent. They're not successful because they created something. They're successful because they have ability to be a criminal that I don't. They're willing to take all kinds of money for having no values or no cultural norms that they're assigned to, no religious, no God feeling that they have to do right. They just sell their soul. That's the truth, Ann. And we're run by the dumbest people on our planet.
Dumbest and the most evil. Dumbest and the most evil. Look, this is really a war that we're seeing unfold right now. It's sort of an oligarchical war in a way, JJ, right? Trump by definition is an oligarch, right? He's a billionaire. He's part of the Billionaire Boys Club. He's a good oligarch, but you've got bad oligarchs around the world and you've got good ones. I submit to you, Putin is a good oligarch. He's over there trying to make Russia great again. And he's sick and tired of seeing his Russian people. Remember, Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union until it split up again. And Ukraine is actually, by definition, by the name of the country, a country without borders. So you have Eastern Ukraine, part of Russia, Western Ukraine, which is really more part of the Azov battalion and that crazy lunatic Zelensky, that, again, NATO countries are still giving him weapons to make long-range attacks into Russia. And again, they try to attack Putin in a helicopter. This is what we're dealing with. You're dealing with a bunch of crazy people that are trying to figure out how to control stuff. And why? Because they've had a financial system run by the Federal Reserve, but really the City of London, that is bankrupt because we are now at the end of the financial cycle. And there is no way out except to continue to print debt into an oblivion. And they need to collateralize the debt they have. And the only way to do it is to start wars by taking over countries like Ukraine, and then, of course, going after Iran and creating weapons of mass destruction like nuclear weapons, which you've been hearing that for, how many years? 50 years we've been hearing Iran has nukes. Here's the problem. They don't. And all these people are interested in is taking the land between the Caspian Sea and the Persian Gulf and the gas and natural gas lines because they want to shut down the access to China and Russia with that natural gas and oil, and they want to keep it for themselves. This is completely a war, which is why President Trump creating energy independence over here, bringing all the manufacturing home, doing all these things, closing the borders is so antithetical to what they are about. It scares the heck out of them, which is why I think we're still seeing the holdovers in our country act in the most asinine ways, as you're saying. They are still fighting the system from inside it, and they're trying to thwart President Trump, who's sitting on top. And it's a battle right now, JJ. And the more we can get Americans to understand not only what's at stake, but really who's creating the problems, the better and more faster we will be at stopping who these people are, these terrorists inside our own government. That's what we're dealing with, terrorists inside the United States government.
Okay, so let's follow this down the rabbit hole. This is something that you have posted multiple times, and I have as well, and it's something that we're passionate about. If there's terrorism inside of our country, there's treason. I don't know if you saw the clip of Senator Kennedy saying that $93 billion was stolen in 76 days in fraudulent loans. The question that you keep posing on your X account, and I do as well, and on my show, where are the arrests, Ann? Where are they?
It's a great question. I think what we're seeing, this Epstein stuff, the boomerang is here, and it's got a guillotine on both sides of that boomerang. I mean, it's got sharp blades, and it's in flight. And I believe what we're understanding now is that President Trump and Bibi Netanyahu aren't actually the best of friends, right? They put up a brave face for quite some time. And there was a lot going on with a lot of money through AIPAC and lobbyists, and all of Congress is pretty much owned by them except for Thomas Massie. So when you think about the entire apparatus of the United States federal government is owned by Israel, that is really problematic. And the fact that President Trump has kept us in this dance with Bibi Netanyahu, and this is not an anti-Semitic rant, by the way. I love Jewish people. I have lots of Jewish friends. Gosh, Dr. Zelenko was a very close friend of mine. God rest his soul. It's not about Judaism. It's about the criminals that are running governments around the world. And as I've said, this is a RICO case, and Epstein revolves in a RICO case that include a lot of world leaders. I mean, look at Macron. Thank you, Candace Owens, for exposing the fact that he married his father, who's pretending to be his wife, Brigitte. We saw her punch him in the face the other day on a plane. I mean, this is insanity what we're dealing with. These are demons, JJ. They're true demons. So when you think about what Epstein represents and all the blackmail they have, President Trump doing this dance with the government of Israel, right, and trying to protect the people of Israel. It's why he, moved the embassy to Jerusalem. He's showing the real Jews deference. But Bibi, it's starting to come out. And he's not playing ball with Bibi anymore. And Bibi isn't going to get to use the United States military to start wars all over the world like he has in the past. Again, Bibi represents the city of London, the same country that wrote the Balfour Declaration with who? The Rothschilds. Rothschild wrote the Balfour Declaration. Again, money, the banks, that's what they were doing. They were using this whole idea of anti-Semitism to get us to be sucker punched into supporting Israel. It's not about anti-Semitism. It's about protecting those central bankers in London so they can wage war in Ukraine, wage war in Iran, because they need to bring these people online into central banking and collateralize the debt that they already have, but also they need the energy. So why are we not seeing arrests? Well, we are trying to untangle this delicately and stay out of a nuclear war. I think Russia fully understands what's going on, and they have been more than patient, in my humble opinion. Vladimir Putin could have nuked somebody by now, but he hasn't, because he sees that the American people are trying to wake up out of the stupor of understanding really who's pulling the strings here and what the battle is all about. So as we're starting to understand the real battle, who the demons are, I believe you're going to see President Trump become more brazen, and I believe the DOJ is going to become more brazen. But JJ, you and I both know weapons of mass destruction, bioweapons, surface-to-air missiles have been smuggled across this border. I have no idea what kind of sword of Damocles are hanging over Trump and the administration from just leveling the boom right now. I think they're still trying to find a lot of the stuff to protect Americans so that we don't have another 9/11 in this country.
Well, you mentioned one name, Ed Martin. Is that right, Mr.
Yes.
Martin? Yes.
Ed Martin.
So I've listened to him on Tucker and a few other interviews, and I am taken aback at how thorough he is, kind of unemotional, like emotional to a point, but he's very direct. However, I try to caution myself to put trust in anyone. Like, I have great trust in Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, but I watched that Sunday show with Maria Bartoloma, and I'm like, whoa, okay, that's not Dan Bongino. Is that a body double? Who took over that man at that time? Now, I could be totally wrong. Maybe he's working some angle. I don't know. Ed Martin, do you believe in this guy, or am I going to be disappointed one more time in my life that I think, okay, well, this guy might do something? Do you think he's going to have the stones to do what needs to be done? You do?
I do. I believe he's going to go for the jugular. I really, really, really do. He worked over at the America Project. He was sort of related at the America Project, which was General Flynn's organization that was funded by Patrick Byrne. He also worked with a group of attorneys that are, just the cream of the crop when it comes to understanding Washington, D.C. and how all that works. I think Ed Martin, first of all, he's a Christian. If you follow his ex, the first thing he does every morning is post, some kind of Bible verse of some sort. He's very, very, religious, and he's very strong in his faith. So I don't think anybody that's going into battle right now, and the way he handled Tom Tillis, and the way Tom Tillis went after him and kept him from getting even into committee so they could take a vote and then try to get him, voted through the Senate. Tom Tillis, of course, paid off by the bad guys. So Ed Martin was like, no problem. I'm going to go over here. The president has another job for me, and I'm going to go after the weaponization of the federal government, which we all know still has not been dealt with. Ashley Babbitt's family got some money, but that doesn't bring Ashley Babbitt back. And that guy, Michael Byrd, who shot her, still walking around. Where's the accountability in all of this? Ed Martin hasn't forgotten about it. And I saw the energy that he brought to that Tucker Carlson interview and how he talked about stuff. He was unfazed with a lady spitting on him. He's like, yeah, whatever. President has given me a job to do, and I'm going to go do it. And I really do believe he is going to bring the accountability, because again, Ed Martin is just a nice guy, and he's seemingly coming out of nowhere. But look at all of these federal judges in Washington, D.C. Look at the U.S. attorneys in Washington, D.C. Did you know, and we've put this out, and probably you do, but we did the Freedom of Information Act request on all these guys, JJ. They don't have proper oaths of office on file. So they are literally imitating through felony and impersonating a federal officer or somebody in the government. They don't even belong there, which is why they're so reckless with what they do, because if they've never really been sworn in, have they committed treason against our Constitution? Probably not. What's the worst thing that can happen? They can be, fired for and held accountable for faking a public officer. So these people don't have an allegiance to America. They have an allegiance to their pocketbooks. And Epstein and the blackmail and the money that comes in represents that. As Robert Kennedy talked about, $90 billion missing. Come on. That they found trillions of dollars missing. Trillions. So we are now faced with who has the money. And I submit to you, anybody that's just warring against the Constitution has already been paid off in some very significant fashion. So this Epstein boomerang is going to entail a lot of people in Congress. It's going to entail a lot of people in these agencies. It's going to entail a lot of people in governments around the world, namely the ones that are warring, that are trying to keep this war together. And I would say every single one of these NATO governments has got blackmail on them by the Epstein machine, which is our CIA and Mossad.
I feel maybe this is, as you were speaking, I was thinking my anxiety, my feeling of urgency. And my feeling of urgency maybe comes from this, Ann, that I believe the house of cards that has been built over decades, maybe 100 years now, is really close to falling down. If we just have the courage to just push it down, it will all collapse. And I want to show you a video to show you how the propaganda, the lies that have been right in front of us, and we just haven't looked at it. And one of those lies, and you mentioned this before, and I want to show you because this is important. It's not, it seems innocuous, but you mentioned it. It's when Macron's wife, who's a man, slaps him or punches him in the face yesterday, and it's caught on camera. I don't think that this is a small thing. I think this is a piece of a giant puzzle showing the world, look at this insanity. When is America, when is civilization going to stand up and say, this has all been a lie? And I want to watch this and give you just a minute to comment, because I know your time is valuable. Can you go ahead and play this, Caleb?
Oh, God.
And that dude is a dude.
It's his dad. It's his dad dressing up to be his wife. I mean, how creepy is this? Talk about pedophilia gone wild. And look, his little boy Macron was out there with his elbow extended to escort his quote wife, who was supposed to be his teacher. Come on. I mean, it's just so revolting. It's so bizarre, and it's kind of sad but funny at this. I mean, like, how embarrassing, right? He's just been exposed, like the cocaine the other day on the train, right? I mean, these people are insane. So again, Macron, France, City of London, they are bankrupt and they are being exposed, which is why France was happy to ship Ukraine all the weapons they ever wanted. And of course, NATO stepping in because they realize the sugar daddy, aka you, me, and every American in this country, our blood, sweat, equity, and tears that goes into paying taxes and the Federal Reserve that they monetize off our backs and print money into debt slavery. $10 to $100 goes in and they make $1,000 coming out. It's just this whole fractional reserve thing is a joke. We are totally bankrupt, and they're going to print more and more money. And I think the way I see President Trump's big, beautiful bill costing another $5 trillion, I think he's trying to expedite the whole collapse of the Federal Reserve because it just can't sustain it. In the meantime, Trump has gotten behind cryptos and all this other stuff and gold, right? You're seeing the state stand up gold and Florida. We're signing a gold bill here. We're going to have gold and silver as legal tender. So I think President Trump, while some are going, oh my gosh, we're going to spend ourselves into an oblivion. Yeah, we are. We're going to do it, but we're bringing manufacturing home. We're bringing all the things home that make America great and provide jobs here and stability while we watch their system collapse, because really it's NATO that hasn't caught up to all this yet. BRICS has got their financial system going, but the Western Europe, they're not on board with the direction that BRICS has gone and where we're going, and we're putting them in a really bad spot. And unfortunately, Macron is just being exposed. He is sort of the, the lamb they're throwing to the slaughter right now when it comes to, Western Europe and the United States. They're going to make him the lamb to the slaughter.
It is the propaganda, the lies that are right in front of our face is unbelievable at times. Yeah. Ann Vandersteel, thanks for coming on. Quickly tell us where we can find you, and then where could we donate? Our audience can donate to help your cause, especially with the couple in Massachusetts and Boston.
Wonderful. Thank you. You can follow me at annvandersteel.com. All of my socials are there. And if you want to help and support the couple in Massachusetts, really what we're doing is trying to take the system down. And go to AmericanMadeAction.org, AmericanMadeAction.org. And that's funding all the lawsuits we're doing. And of course, trying to get this documentary finished. But the lawsuits are the meat and potatoes of what we're doing. We're starting in Mass, and then we're going state by state, and we're going to use this template lawsuit adjusted for statutes by the state, and name names of judges, name names of people in law enforcement, anybody who violated your constitutional right. That's who we're going after to take the snake off the plate and just take them off the table, because that'll alleviate millions of cases around the country. So thank you, JJ.
No, thank you, Ann. We'll see you next week. God only knows what we're going to find out in 7 days. It's unbelievable. Thank you, and take care of yourself. It's Trump time. Absolutely, MAGA. Thank you, Ann. Ann Vandersteel. Go to @Ann Vandersteel on X. @Ann Vandersteel on X. She's incredible. Fast. You have to be on your toes with Ann. She's fast. She knows what she's talking about, and she knows the history behind it. One of the things we talk about on our show is being prepared. Be prepared. How do you do that? Well, you can go shop at Patriots Made. You can go to Bella Grace. You can go to Pet Club. And one of the ways to be prepared, though, outside of nutrition, food, and your health is sat123.com. sat123.com/JJ. We talked about this last week, the immense amounts of school shootings, the shootings that are happening in America, the violent black on white crime in the inner cities and in small towns, and just crime. Well, how do I combat that with my son who's 13 or my wife? They're not carrying a weapon. Well, they have a ballistic backpack. A ballistic backpack. No much heavier than your normal backpack, more sturdy, and it gives your family, your loved one, a fighting chance. And Sat phone is their number one product. It's a Sat phone you get for free, $300, $600, $1,000 Sat phone for free with a subscription, which is less than $100 a month. And then you are forever connected to your loved ones in case of a catastrophe, or just my son goes driving and gets caught, broke down, accident, God forbid, needs to get a hold of me, can't, cell coverage is down. He reaches in his glove compartment and there's a sat phone, and he can call dad or 911 and he's safe. Be prepared. Go to sat123.com/JJ. Caleb, I want to keep going to the very top of the list because I want to stay on this topic of where are the men in conjunction to what have we done to our nation? What have we allowed to be done to our nation? And I came across this. It's a country song, and this young lady posted it on X and TikTok, etc. But I found it on X, and it's only about 45 seconds. And she's from Eastern Kentucky, and she's talking about the pharmaceutical companies that destroyed Eastern Kentucky with the oxycodone, with all of the pain medicines that have just ravaged Kentucky, in particular Eastern Kentucky. And I saw this young woman sing, and I thought, and I listened to her words, and I saw the words come up on the screen, and I was like, dang, that really says, in less than 60 seconds, says a whole hell of a lot. We are being attacked on every level, on every front in our society, in our culture, in our daily lives. And this is just one of them. This insatiable greed to destroy lives as long as you make money and have more cars and houses. I'm all for capitalism. I'm all for success, and I'm all for property value, property rights, and earning money. Have nothing against that. But it's got to be done correctly, not at the expense of people. Can you play this for me, Caleb?
Big Pharma targeted Eastern Kentucky. This is the story.
It was, hey doc, there's a thing in my knee. Been working underground since 83. Doctor said I got you the remedy. It'll kill that pain real quick, trust me. Didn't take long, half the town was on it. Didn't ask questions, no, we just popped them. Doctors getting fat from raking in kickbacks. All happened so fast. One man's grave is another man's paycheck. RX meds at our expense. Forget the coal mines, they hit a gold mine. Hooked us on 6 feet of side effects. Like a wolf dressed in sheep's clothes. The devil wore a lab coat.
It's right on the money. Right on the money. Netflix had a documentary on this that was powerful, and I forget the name, so please forgive me. It was all about the oxy and how more powerful than heroin and it's cheaper, and how Big Pharma knew. They knew. And they didn't care. Let's just keep pushing it out. This is just one aspect or one attack on America. And if you've been watching my show for a day or since I've been on or read my books, you know that I lay everything at the feet of the man, the American man. We did not protect our wives, our children, our families. We did not. It's our fault. Because we became such an enlightened country. We're so enlightened that our fathers and our grandfathers and their fathers, well, they were cavemen. They didn't understand the ways of the world that we do. We're so much more educated. We're so much more enlightened. No, we're not. All we have done is become soft and impotent. Why is the testosterone levels cratering? Why is the sperm count losing 1% a year in men? Do you not see the correlation? What would my father, my grandfather, and my great-grandfather? My great-grandfather was in the army as an Indian, a Native American. Changed his name, got in the army. chasing Pancho Villa down an Arizona border. What would those men, those three men, what would they do if a man walked in a dress into a woman's changing area or a bathroom? Well, those three men would cave that man's skull in. And then the other men around them would stomp that man to death. And then they would all look at each other and go, I don't know what happened to this man, as the police officer arrives. You know what the police officer would have done back in those days? I guess it's a closed case. Maybe just fell down. And the initial reaction from the left and all you beta males is, that is horrible. We would never want to go back to those days. Why? Why wouldn't we want to go back to the days where men are raping and sexually assaulting our children and our women, aren't killed on the spot? Why would we not want to go back to those days? Go ahead. I'm waiting. That happens to my son or my wife, I promise you, I will leave. I will, what does the left call it? I'm going to unlife that person. I'm not going to wait for the judicial system. Are you insane? The judicial system is a joke. It's an absolute fraud. There's no woman with a blindfold trying to be unbiased. Are you that stupid? There's no justice in America. And this is where it comes full circle. If we continue down to this unjust world in America, it will go back to those days. And you're going to be shocked when you see it. It happens across the globe, people. It's happened throughout history to the most enlightened, the most civilized societies that you can imagine. We're heading there, but it's all the men. The only people that can stop this and that can correct this are the men. And I came across this powerful, powerful young woman giving a speech about exactly what I'm talking about right now. It's about a minute and a half, but wow, is she powerful. Listen to this young lady.
Because there are some bad men, we just won't submit to any man. Imagine if husbands had an entire movement for the last hundreds of years where they said, because there are very dishonoring women out there, because there are some women that manipulate, you know what, we're just going to do away with this whole concept of loving our wives entirely. No woman deserves my love. Don't react to the fact that there are bad men. There are men that rule with dominion, and there are men that rule with domination. Domination says, I will use you to get what I want. But a good king, a good leader that rules by dominion says, these are the people under my care, and I will lead those people in what's best for them. And a good king can't lead his nation if all of the people aren't willing to be led. We've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. The problem was never men or male leadership or the fact that we must submit to them. The problem is bad men that don't fear God, that don't love God, and we need the good men to protect us from the bad men. So don't just cast out all men altogether. We must praise the good men that are willing to protect us against the bad men. Men, we honor you. We honor your leadership. We honor your strength. We honor the fact that you will guide us in righteousness. We honor the fact that you protect us, that you care about the righteousness of the home. We need you. The world has said to you for too long that your masculinity is toxic, that your strength is toxic. No, we need your strength. We need your masculinity. We want your leadership.
Can't add anything else to that, young lady. The world has told you that your masculinity is toxic, your strength is toxic. No, we need your masculinity, we need your strength, we need your leadership, we need you. That is a call from not another man, from a woman that's begging the men to rise up. Will we? I don't know. I don't know what we're waiting for. Is it a spark? I don't know. And it has to start with you protecting your family and moving outward from there. I watched that several times, and she is absolutely right. We've allowed bad men, very, very evil men, destroy our world. Destroy it. When are we going to take it back? I don't know. And that's the part that concerns me, infuriates me, makes me angry is not so much the evil men. It's the response to the evil men that make me so agitated. One of these men, before I do that, let me go to Pet Club 24/7. It's going to talk about Trump because he did something incredible over the weekend that I want to talk about. But Pet Club 24/7 allows you to be healthy. If you want to be in this fight that I'm talking about, you want to be in this war, you can't do it when you're sick. Well, how do you do that? Well, your body has been pumped full of toxins for decades. Some of you took the vaccine. Your body is riddled with that mRNA. My body has remdesivir coursing through my veins that I was pumped into me, unbeknownst to me how bad it is. So I take Pet Club 24/7. It's for your pets and for you, humans. And it's to help your immune system, your gut, and your immune system to thrive. So go to Pet Club or just truthwithjj247.com, truthwithjj247.com at petclub247.com. I love that product. I love the husband and wife team, Kurt and Kristen, God-fearing, God-loving people that believe that God produced our needs here on earth. We don't need Pfizer. We don't need people that create oxycodone. We don't need any of those people. It's all here. Pet Club 24/7. Truthwithjj247.com. Only got 2 minutes, but I want to show this clip, and I think I asked you if you stop it at 48 seconds. This is Donald Trump signing, I think, the greatest executive order that is going to propel nuclear energy, the safest, cleanest, most efficient energy. And he's going to accelerate the building of these nuclear power plants, nuclear energy facilities across America. It's going to change America. Please play this for me.
Sir, this next executive order is intended to reform the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. You heard a few of the people here speak about the complex regulatory processes that have really held the nuclear industry back. Before 1978, there were 133 reactors built in the United States. Since 1978, only 2 new commercial reactors have come online. That's because of overregulation, and the goal of this executive order is bringing that regulatory process into line with the actual needs of the industry and public safety, with an end goal of quadrupling the amount of nuclear power production in the next 2.5 decades.
It's fantastic. It's exciting, right?
When I watch him sign his executive orders, I have to step back and applaud him. And there's not enough accolades. There's not enough adjectives for me to describe how important this man is, Donald Trump. The only way that I can try to convey how important he is I want you to envision right now, poof, Donald Trump's gone. Just gone. Who's running our country? What Democrat? What Republican? And would one, not the hundreds of things he's done, would one thing ever have happened? Would Doge ever happen? Would nuclear energy ever happen? Would drilling in Anwar ever happen? Would keeping America safe ever happen? You know the answer. No, it wouldn't. We need to pray for that man's safety because he is our leader.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon House.
But with Brannon, it's always